Today is November the 26th, 2024, and we are hearing that Joe Biden has now enraged Russia with the consideration of providing Ukraine with nuclear weapons to defend themselves against Russia. Now, in addition to that, as I shared with you, we are hearing that NATO today had meetings considering preemptive strikes to attack Russia before Russia can attack them. So a lot of things escalating today, November the 26th, 2024. And take a look at the latest headlines with me. Putin ally issues a nuclear war warning to the United States. And this is Russia, we are hearing, that is issuing this warning after hearing that Biden was considering providing nuclear weapons to Ukraine. Now, I'm going to share with you all the details coming out in this article that just came out today on this. As we're hearing, they are not happy. Things are escalating. Take a look at this. Russia is preparing a response after Kiev fires several U.S.-made missiles in two attacks. We are hearing that Ukraine has launched more U.S. ATACMS into Russia in a second attack, and Russia is saying there will be a retaliation. Very upset as well, yet again, that the United States allowing this, and Ukraine for a second time now hitting Russia with U.S.-made missiles. And now take a look. Here's another one. Kremlin admits Ukraine hit targets in Russia with U.S.-made ATACMS. This is a second attack coming from Ukraine against Russia. Now, in addition to that, we also saw a meeting taking place with the United States today, as we were hearing that the Pentagon was holding a briefing after Russia's barrages against Ukraine with drone attacks. So things are escalating between Russia and Ukraine. We had a meeting with NATO today. The Pentagon held an emergency meeting as well, discussing the situation unfolding. Things are escalating. As I mentioned, they are furious right now with Joe Biden with what is unfolding. And as I said, NATO is currently discussing the possibility of a preemptive strike against Russia. Now, this article came out yesterday discussing the meeting that would unfold today. And we're hearing that it did unfold. And they are discussing potential all-out war here. NATO saying, why are we going to sit around and wait for Russia to hit us? We should do a preemptive attack to disable their ability to hit us and hit them right now. Now, this coming after we had already seen them use a hypersonic intermediate range ballistic missile against Ukraine. Russia essentially letting the world know their capabilities and that nobody on Earth can stop these missiles, they said. No one can stop these. So this was a show of strength by Russia to the rest of the world, letting us know, look at what we're capable of. We can hit you at any time, however we would like. Now, so we are going to see how things are going to be moving forward from here. But take a look at this article coming out today. Joe Biden is seeking $24 billion more for Ukraine aid and weapon replenishment. Joe Biden saying, listen, when I leave in a couple of weeks, in about a month, I want to make sure that Ukraine has enough funding to sustain them throughout the entire year of 2025. He is saying we need to arm them because Donald Trump's going to come in and try to end the war. And he is saying Ukraine needs to be able to sustain. Joe Biden saying send more money to Ukraine. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you agree with Joe Biden, drop a 2. If you disagree and say no, stop sending money, put a 1. But Joe Biden saying send over 24 billion more US dollars to Ukraine to help with the war. So we are hearing that Joe Biden approving long-range missiles. We're hearing that Joe Biden approving anti-personnel landmines in Ukraine. We are hearing that Joe Biden taking into consideration nuclear weapons to Ukraine. And now Joe Biden today requesting $24 billion more to go to Ukraine to help replenish their weapons and provide additional aid. If you disagree, put a 1. If you agree, put a 2. But Joe Biden, as I mentioned, enraging Russia with his rhetoric the past couple of weeks, and now even more coming out on this. And we are hearing, I'm going to share with you the response coming out from Russia and what they are saying, and the United States' response to this as well. Now, in addition to that, speaking of Joe Biden, take a look at this. President Joe Biden announces a ceasefire to end the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. So while we have escalation unfolding between Russia and Ukraine, we are now seeing that Israel and Hezbollah, one of the Iranian-backed proxy groups, is now going to be ending their conflicts. At this time, we're hearing that a ceasefire will be initiated as of tomorrow. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you some video footage on these so you can see it for yourself and the latest articles coming out on this. A lot unfolding today. Coming out today, November the 26th, 2024. A lot of developments on various fronts with the conflicts that are taking place all over the world. So I'm going to get you caught up on the latest. Now, do me a favor if you appreciate this. There was a lot, and so I essentially just tried to cram it all in here at the end of the day, and I did one earlier for you today as we had heard about what was going on with NATO potentially attacking Russia, and now we're hearing that there are threats to the United States and Russia saying they are vowing retaliation. If you appreciate all the updates, keeping you up to speed on everything, do me a quick favor. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that like button. So we've got 2,157 people with me currently live at 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, November the 26th. Also, to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not go ahead and hit the subscribe button? You know, here on the channel, I try to cite all of my sources, put it on the screen. They are hyperlinked, so you can read them for yourself. You can see the dates, the titles, the sources. Try to hold myself to the highest level of accountability to my community, so that way you know where the information is coming from and you can see it for yourself. If you appreciate that, do me a quick favor, take a second, hit that like button for me, subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. And in addition to the articles being linked down in the description, also more resources for you down below as well if you want to start preparing. We always say here on the channel, don't be scared, be prepared. Knowledge is power, but the true application of knowledge is power. So what you're hearing, what you're finding out is going on around the world, don't dig your head in the sand and try to pretend like it's not going on. Be aware and then go ahead and prepare. Take whatever steps necessary that you feel to keep you and your family in the best situations possible. So some additional resources linked down below for you. Reagan, thank you for the $2 super chat. Says, Jesus is king. Yes, he is. Amen to that. I believe that as well, Reagan. And thank you for the $2 super chat. The super chats also help spread these videos out across the YouTube platform more, so that way people can get the latest updates. Appreciate that a ton. So let's go ahead and get right to it, though, get you caught up on the latest with everything that is going on. And let's go ahead and start off with an update with what is going on between NATO and Russia. And then I'm going to be sharing with you some articles coming out as to what is going on with Russia and Biden. And then also some video footage on the ceasefire that we have heard has just been announced with Israel and Hezbollah. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video footage, and as soon as it starts playing, do me a favor. If you hear it and see it okay, drop a 5x5 so I know it's coming in clear.
NATO held emergency talks with Ukraine Tuesday. The meeting was called after Russia hit the central Ukrainian city of Dnipro last week with an experimental ballistic missile. Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed Western anti-missile systems are incapable of intercepting this new type of weapon. A NATO spokesperson says the military alliance reaffirmed its support for Ukraine during the talks and that the Dnipro strike would not alter the course of the war. At a separate meeting with the Prime Minister of Greece, NATO's Secretary General said more should be done to aid Ukraine.
Our support for Ukraine has kept them in the fight. But we need to go further to change the trajectory of the conflict. We need to provide critical air defenses and deliver on the commitments made at the NATO summit in Washington.
Ivo Dalder joins us now. He is the former U.S. ambassador to NATO. Thank you so much for being here. What options does NATO have to respond to Russia without escalating the conflict?
Well, it has a most important option to continue to do what it's doing, which is to send as many weapons as it can, as quickly as it can to Ukraine, and to support Ukraine, not just this month, not just next month, but really for as long as it takes for Ukraine to be able to defend the territory that the Russians are attacking. I'm not particularly worried about the prospect of real escalation because of what the Russians have been doing. The Russians are trying to rattle our cages, and this is a time when, as I think NATO said today at the meeting, it's time to bear downs, be steadfast, and continue to support Ukraine.
Let's talk about the rattling of the cage, because NATO says Russia using this new type of missile won't change the course of the conflict. But according to Putin, these missiles fly at 10 times the speed of sound. How could that not change the conflict?
Well, one, they don't have a lot of them. Two, they really only have an impact when they are armed by nuclear weapons, not by the conventional weapons that this one missile seemed to have had. And that would really change the nature of the conflict. The use of a nuclear weapon has not happened since 1945. The use of a nuclear weapon against a country that is supported by other nuclear weapons countries has never happened before. So before that happens, Vladimir Putin would have to think very seriously about the consequences. But as a conventional missile, yes, it can do damage. But, there were 180 or so drones being shot just overnight by the Russians against Ukraine, 25,000 missiles and drones since the beginning of the war. One more missile that happens to go very fast is not going to make a fundamental difference.
Well, Trump says he would end the war in 24 hours. He hasn't said how, but could these recent developments be an effort by either Ukraine or Russia to sort of maximize their bargaining positions before Trump comes into office?
Yeah, I do think that particularly on the Russian side, you're seeing an attempt to gain as much territory, and they actually are gaining quite a bit of territory compared to what was the case for the last few months. But they're doing so at an incredible cost. We now know it's about 1,500 dead and wounded a day that the Russians are losing. That's about 45,000 a month. Those are extraordinary numbers of casualties. Yes, the Ukrainians are also suffering casualties, but the square kilometers that the Russians are gaining in territory, which looks like they are trying to gain before the inauguration of President Trump, is coming at a cost that is really, truly extraordinary.
If the U.S. stops sending money to Ukraine under Trump, would NATO be forced to reevaluate its position on aid for Ukraine?
Well, the aid that is being provided today is provided by nations, not by NATO as such. So if the United States decided no longer to send aid, then European members of NATO would have to consider whether they could fill the gap. And the answer to that is yes when it comes to monetary terms, but probably no when it comes to actual weapons. There just aren't enough weapons that the Europeans have in their stockpiles that can be sent. But what I think will happen is a continuing support for Ukraine, including for the Ukrainian defense industry, with more and more money being transferred to the Ukrainians to increase its own capabilities. That said, there's no doubt that if the United States cut off further aid to Ukraine, that will have a major impact on Ukraine's ability to defend itself against this brutal attack.
Ambassador Ivo Dalder, we really appreciate your expertise. We hope you'll come back.
My pleasure.
There you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts. We're hearing that things are escalating with NATO and Russia, and I shared with you earlier today that there was a meeting today where they were discussing preemptive attacks. Russia accused them of preemptive attacks, and we're hearing that it was accurate, that is what they're considering right now. They're saying, why would we sit around and wait for Russia to attack us? And they're threatening us. Why wouldn't we go ahead and hit them first? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Should NATO do a preemptive attack against Russia, or will that just simply escalate things even further? We're hearing that today. Russia very, very aggravated with what is unfolding with the United States and NATO, with the threats going back and forth. Julia, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Leighton Hutchinson, thank you for the $2 super chat. Mark 16:15 through 16 before it's too late. God bless Steve. God bless you, and thank you for that super chat and that warning. Let's go ahead and take a look at this article so that way you can see it for yourself. As the Putin ally is issuing nuclear war warnings to the United States. You can see this coming out today, November the 26th this morning, being updated also later on this evening. And it says, an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin has issued a nuclear warning to the United States in a post on Telegram amid increasing tensions between the two countries. Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia and the former Russian president, criticized discussions around transferring nuclear weapons from the United States to Ukraine. So again, to clarify, we were hearing, reported first by the New York Times, that Joe Biden was taking into consideration providing nuclear weapons to Ukraine to defend itself against Russia. They were saying that in 1994, with the Budapest Memorandum, it was recorded that Ukraine gave over their nuclear weapons in agreement, in an act of good faith, that the U.S., the U.K., and Russia would provide support for them for giving up their nuclear weapons and protect them from any nation that were to attack them. Well, we're hearing that Russia has now broken that, and now Ukraine came out and said, listen, either we need the support of NATO or we need the support of nuclear weapons. NATO has not stepped up to have Ukraine entered into NATO, so they are saying they need nuclear weapons. And we're hearing that Joe Biden was saying, yeah, I agree. We should provide those to them. This being reported by the New York Times just a couple of days ago, and now Russia is responding to this. As you can see, Dmitry Medvedev, Security Council Russia, former Russian president, criticized these discussions around transferring nuclear weapons from the United States to Ukraine, saying, man, this would equal nuclear war. Look at this quote here. Now, listen to this. We are not planning to equip Ukraine with nuclear weapons, the White House told Newsweek. So now the White House kind of walking back those statements that came out. Now, we had heard that they had come from anonymous sources that knew more information about what the Biden administration was planning to do. Russia coming out and saying they are infuriated by these statements. White House walking it back and says when contacted for a response to these reports and Medvedev's comments. Now, in his post on Telegram, Medvedev wrote, American politicians and journalists are seriously discussing the consequences of transferring nuclear weapons to Kiev. It seems that my sad joke about crazy, senile Biden who decided to leave this life gracefully, taking a significant part of humanity with him, is turning into a frightening reality. Give nuclear weapons to a country at war with the largest nuclear power? The idea is so absurd that it raises suspicions about a paranoid psychosis in Joe the Walking Dead and all those who would advise such a move. Wow. There you have it, the statement from Medvedev on Joe Biden, calling him Joe the Walking Dead, saying that him and anybody that's advising this, they have paranoid psychosis. And he says that it's absolutely insane for them. Absurd was the word that he used for them to consider giving nuclear weapons to a nation to fight against the largest nuclear power on Earth. Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you agree with him and that this would essentially lead to World War III. Drop a 3 in the comments if you think you disagree with him and that this is just them, bluffing, we had heard, posturing, put a 4. But if you agree that Joe Biden should not be doing this, drop a 3 in the comments. But as I mentioned, the White House already kind of walking back here, these words, stepping back from what they had said. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, he continued, yet I must comment on the nonsense. Number one, the very threat of transferring nuclear weapons to the Kiev regime can be considered preparation for nuclear conflict with Russia. So he said, take into consideration that you are preparing for nuclear conflict with Russia if you do this. So this is a direct threat warning to the United States. That number two, the actual transfer of such weapons can be equated to an act of an attack on our country under Article 19 of our fundamentals of state policy in the field of nuclear deterrence. The consequences are obvious. Again, a threat, this directly to the United States. So Russia is saying, hey, if you do this, we will attack you, and the consequences are obvious. It's going to be a nuclear response. So Russia not holding back the punches, breaking it down twice, and also calling Joe Biden the Walking Dead. Newsweek reached out to the Russian government for comment via email. And here you can see Deputy Chairman of Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, holding a meeting in Russia. And we're hearing a lot of meetings have been unfolding today, November the 26th, 2024, as things are escalating and tensions are rising around Russia and Ukraine. Now, according to Article 19 of the basic principles of the state policy of the Russian Federation of the nuclear deterrence, which Medvedev referred to as of 2020, the conditions specifying the possibility of nuclear weapons used by the Russian Federation include the arrival of reliable data on a launch of ballistic missiles attacking the territory of the Russian Federation and or its allies. It continued, use of nuclear weapons or other types of weapons of mass destruction by an adversary against the Russian Federation and or its allies, attack by adversaries against critical governmental or military sites of the Russian Federation, disruption of which would undermine nuclear force response actions, aggression against the Russian Federation with the use of conventional weapons when the very existence of the state is in jeopardy. Russian President Vladimir Putin recently signed an updated nuclear doctrine into law. And a lot of people saying this is a sign that Russia is not bluffing, that they have changed their nuclear doctrines. They are ready to attack any nation that is supporting Ukraine with nuclear weapons, ballistic missiles, and that is specific to the United States and NATO at this time. And the new law emphasizes that Russia will make all necessary efforts to reduce the nuclear threat and aims to prevent escalating tensions between states that could lead to military conflicts, including nuclear ones. Now, it also says that nuclear deterrence should also ensure an understanding by a potential adversary of the inevitability of retaliation in the event of aggression against the Russian Federation and or its allies. Medvedev has previously served as Russia's president and prime minister. He recently commented on the range of Russia's new hypersonic ballistic missile, the Orshnik, used in the recent attack on Ukraine's Dnipro, and wrote on Telegram, "Europe is wondering what damage the system can cause if the heads are nuclear, whether it is possible to shoot down these missiles, and how quickly the missiles will reach the capital of the old world. The answer? The damage is unacceptable. It is impossible to shoot down with modern means, and we are talking about minutes." So they are saying that this is hypersonic. I believe it was 10 times the speed of sound, unable to stop it, and if they strap nuclear warheads to it, he said the damage would be unacceptable. It would be impossible to stop. So this is the warnings coming out from Russia about what they are capable of. Now, he added bomb shelters will not help. So the only hope is that Russia will warn about launches in advance. Therefore, it is better to stop supporting the war. Medvedev also criticized President Joe Biden's authorization of Ukraine to use the long-range weapons to conduct deep strikes into Russian territory, which began last week and have continued escalating as both countries retaliate against one another. He said that Ukraine's use of U.S.-made ATACMS in an attack in Bryansk last week has led to what can now be qualified as an attack by the bloc's country on Russia, and that in this case, the right arises to launch a retaliatory strike with weapons of mass destruction against Kiev and the main NATO facilities wherever they are. And this is already World War III. So there you have it. Again, we are hearing Russian President Vladimir Putin saying that this is a global conflict. We are now hearing that Medvedev is saying that this is World War III. Ukraine is saying that this is already World War III. And we're hearing that, I believe it was Switzerland, Finland, Norway, Germany, several of these saying we are in World War III right now. And in addition to that, we're hearing that Germany is preparing 800,000 NATO troops to be sent over to Ukraine to help fight in the war as things are escalating, tensions are rising. Now, in addition to that, things are not slowing down on either side whatsoever, as we're hearing that Ukraine hit Russia again with more missiles. Take a look at this. Russia preparing response after Kiev fires several U.S.-made missiles in 2 attacks. Moscow claims Ukraine has fired multiple U.S. long-range missiles into 2 separate attacks and says it is preparing a response. So we're hearing that Russia will be attacking. An attack is coming on the ground in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Putin forces are advancing at the fastest rate since the early months of the war, according to U.S.-based think tanks. So we're hearing they are taking ground and fast. Let's see here. Oh, this is actually the live feed update. It doesn't take me right to it. It looks like it is updated on this particular one. Let's go ahead and see. Oh, okay. Let me reference this one from Politico right here. Kremlin admits that Ukraine hit targets in Russia with U.S.-made ATACMS. Now it says Ukraine's armed forces hit a military-civilian airfield, and you can see this one coming out just about 3 hours ago, in Russia's Kursk region on Monday with multiple long-range ATACMS, the Russian Defense Ministry admitted on Tuesday today. 7 missiles were shot down, 1 hit a target, the ministry said, according to the Russian state-owned RIA Novosti news outlet. The Defense Ministry is preparing a strike in response to these attacks. Now, civil aviation operations at the airfield known as the Kursk Vostochny ceased in February of 2022, the month Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The Kursk region border Ukraine and was invaded by Kiev in August in an operation involving an estimated 10,000 troops, according to the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Ukraine currently controls some 650 square kilometers in the region. In addition to the airfield strike, the Kremlin also confirmed that Ukraine on Saturday had used 5 ATACMS missiles that hit S-400 missile positions in a village in Kursk's region. 3 missiles were destroyed while 2 hit the targets, the Russian Defense Ministry had said on Tuesday. Kiev has officially confirmed only the S-400 attack and has not identified the missiles that it used. The Ukrainian army carried out a group strike on the positions of Anti-Aircraft Missile Division 1490 of the Russian Federation in Kursk region. A successful hit was recorded on the radar station of the S-400 anti-aircraft missile system. Kiev's General Staff said in a statement on Monday. So you can see that there are attacks going back and forth between the two. Ukraine hitting Russia again with U.S.-made ATACMS. So Russia, as you can see, not happy with the United States, their support for Ukraine, and Ukraine taking full advantage of the opportunity to use these ATACMS against Russia as things are escalating. Now, in addition to that, though, we are also hearing that there was an attack back by Russia. Now, we're not hearing that this is the actual retaliation for the ATACMS, but there was a drone barrage that took place, and as a result, we saw the Pentagon hold a briefing today after Russia's barrage against Ukraine in drone attack. Russia launched 188 drones against most regions of Ukraine in a nighttime blitz, the Ukrainian Air Force said on Tuesday, describing it as a record number of drones deployed in a single attack. Most of the drones were intercepted, according to the Air Force, but apartment buildings and critical infrastructure such as the national power grid were damaged. No casualties were immediately reported in the 17 targeted regions. Now, the Russian Defense Ministry, meanwhile, issued a rare official acknowledgement of its assets recently being hit on its own soil by U.S.-made ATACMS missiles after President Joe Biden authorized Ukraine to use long-range weapons to strike deeper inside of Russia. Now, Russia has been hammering civilian areas of Ukraine with increasingly heavy drone missiles and glide bomb attacks since the middle of the year. At the same time, Russia's army has largely held the battlefield initiative for the past year and has been pushing hard in the eastern Donetsk region, where it is making significant tactical advances, according to Western military analysts. Ukraine faces a difficult winter with worries about the reliability of the electricity supply amid Russia's attacks and how much U.S. support it can count on next year after President-elect Donald Trump takes office in January. The Russian Defense Ministry said 5 U.S.-made Army tactical missile systems, or ATACMS missiles, were fired at one of its air defense missile systems in Russia's Kursk border region on Saturday. It said 3 of the missiles were down by the short-range air defense systems protecting the positions, but that 2 missiles hit it, injuring an unspecified number of servicemen and damaging systems radars. In another attack with ATACMS on Monday, 8 of the missiles were launched at the Kursk Vostochny military air base near Kalino. 7 of them were shot down and 1 hit the facility, injuring 2 servicemen and causing minor damage, the ministry said. Preparations for retaliatory actions are underway, the ministry said without elaborating. A U.S. official said November 19th that ATACMS had been fired at targets inside of Russia for the first time. As Russian Shahed drones spread out across Ukraine late on Monday, the air raid alert in the Kiev region overnight lasted more than 7 hours. Russia is trying to unnerve civilians and wear down their will to resist in the almost 3-year-old war, military analysts said. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky noted that each Shahed had 85 foreign components and that Russia obtained them by circumventing international sanctions. He said on the Telegram messaging app that we need more joint effort so that the sanctions work and force Russia to stop this war. So this was an emergency meeting that was held by the Pentagon today in the United States. And as I mentioned, NATO held a meeting today regarding preemptive strikes on Russia. NATO saying, why are we going to wait for Russia to attack us? We should take the initiative and attack them before they hit us to help de-escalate the situation. Now, this article was released yesterday, but that meeting we're hearing took place today. NATO is discussing the possibility of a preemptive precision strikes on the territory of Russia in the event of an armed conflict with the alliance countries. This was stated at a conference in Brussels by the head of the military committee of the bloc, Admiral Rob Bauer. He called positive the fact that NATO has changed its attitude to the essence of the organization as a defense alliance, as well as the perception that it is necessary to sit and wait for us to be attacked and only then react. It is more competent not to wait, he said, but to hit launchers in Russia in case Russia attacks us. A combination of precision strikes is needed that will disable the systems that are used to attack us. And we must strike first, Bauer said, quoted by Bloomberg. As reported by the EA Daily, the probability of a Russian attack on one of the NATO countries, including Poland or the Baltic states, is estimated to be low at this time. This was stated in an interview with PAP by the head of the Alliance's military committee, Rob Bauer. So there you have it. We are hearing several meetings taking place today. And as I mentioned, another one is that Joe Biden is wanting to provide an additional $24 billion to Ukraine to help them continue on their fight, even if even if Donald Trump is coming in as the president of the United States. So, now let's see. Now, this is something that I think he is requesting, but I don't think that he can do this on his own. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this would need to come through legislation through Congress. President Joe Biden is quietly making a long-shot request, yes, to lawmakers for another $24 billion to aid Ukraine and replace U.S. weapons that have been sent into the fight against Russia before he leaves office. We got the dough. The White House Office of Management and Budget briefly outlined the request in a list obtained by Politico of spending exemptions known as anomalies that the administration wants added to a government funding patch lawmakers are likely to pass next month. 2 congressional aides confirmed the details of the proposal and said that Congress received it Monday. Both aides were granted anonymity to discuss the funding requests that hasn't been made public just quite yet. So, wow, there you have it. Joe Biden requesting an additional $24 billion to be sent overseas to Ukraine to help them in the war. And we're hearing so that way they can continue the fighting on to through the year 2025, even if he is not in office. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Joe Biden making Russia very unhappy with some of his recent decisions and now considering pouring more fuel on the fire with an additional $24 billion to be sent over. Wow, let me know your thoughts. I see Roy Chong in the comments saying no. I see Charlotte saying no. So, in addition to that, though, we are hearing some good news regarding a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. We're hearing that there has been an agreement that has been reached. So, while we're talking about Joe Biden, let's go ahead and take a look at this video footage that has come out. I'm going to share with you what is being said as today they announced that there has been a ceasefire deal has been reached. Let's take a look, and do me a favor, if you can hear it and see it okay as soon as it starts playing, drop that 5x5 for me.
Good afternoon. Today I have some good news to report from the Middle East. I just spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. I want to thank President Macron of France for his partnership in reaching this moment. For nearly 14 months, a deadly conflict raged across the border that separates Israel and Lebanon. A conflict that began the day after the October 7 attack by Hamas on Israel. Hours later, at 2 a.m. in the morning, Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations backed by Iran attacked Israel in support of Hamas. Let's be clear, Israel did not launch this war. The Lebanese people did not seek that war either, nor did the United States. Over the past year, including the days immediately following October the 7th, I directed the U.S. military to flow assets and capabilities into the region, including aircraft carriers, fighter squadrons, and sophisticated air defense battery to defend Israel and deter our common enemy at critical moments. Since the war with Hezbollah began, over 70,000 Israelis have been forced to live as refugees in their own country. helplessly watching their homes, their businesses, their communities as they're bombarded and destroyed. And over 300,000 Lebanese people have also been forced to live as refugees in their own country. And a war imposed on them by Hezbollah. All told, this has been the deadliest conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in decades. How many of Hezbollah's senior leaders are dead, including its longtime leader, Nasrallah? And Israel has destroyed Hezbollah's terrorist infrastructure in southern Lebanon as well, including miles of sophisticated tunnels, which were prepared for an October 7-style terrorist attack in northern Israel. But lasting security for the people of Israel and Lebanon cannot be achieved only on the battlefield. And that's why I directed my team to work with the governments of Israel and Lebanon to forge a ceasefire, to bring a conflict between Israel and Hezbollah to a close. Under the deal reached today, effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time, the fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end. This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities. What is left of Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations will not be allowed, well, I emphasize, will not be allowed to threaten the security of Israel again. Over the next 60 days, the Lebanese army and state security forces will deploy and take control of their own territory once again. Hezbollah terrorist infrastructure in southern Lebanon will not be allowed to be rebuilt. And over the next 60 days, Israel will gradually withdraw its remaining forces. And civilians on both sides will soon be able to safely return to their communities and begin to rebuild their homes, their schools, their farms, their businesses, and their very lives. We're determined this conflict will not be just another cycle of violence. And so the United States, with the full support of France and our other allies, has pledged to work with Israel and Lebanon to ensure that this arrangement is fully implemented, the agreement totally implemented. You know, there will be no U.S. troops deployed in southern Lebanon. This is consistent with my commitment to the American people to not put U.S. troops in combat in this conflict. Instead, we, along with France and others, will provide the necessary assistance to make sure this deal is implemented fully and effectively. Let me be clear. If Hezbollah or anyone else breaks the deal and poses a direct threat to Israel, then Israel retains the right to self-defense consistent with international law, just like any country when facing a terrorist group pledged to that country's destruction. At the same time, this deal supports Lebanon's sovereignty, and so it heralds a new start for Lebanon, a country that I've seen most of over the years, a country with rich history and culture. If fully implemented, this deal can put Lebanon on a path toward a future that's worthy of its significant past. And just as the Lebanese people deserve a future of security and prosperity, so do the people of Gaza. They too deserve an end to the fighting and displacement. The people of Gaza have been through hell. Their world's absolutely shattered. Far too many civilians in Gaza have suffered far too much. And Hamas has refused for months and months to negotiate a good faith ceasefire and a hostage deal. And so now Hamas has a choice to make. Their only way out is to release the hostages, including American citizens, which they hold. And in the process, bring an end to the fighting, which would make possible a surge of humanitarian relief. Over the coming days, the United States will make another push with Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, Israel, and others to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza. With the hostages released and the end of the war without Hamas in power, that becomes possible. As for the broader Middle East region, today's announcement brings us closer to realizing the affirmative agenda that I've been pushing forward during my entire presidency. A vision for the future of the Middle East where it's at peace and prosperous and integrated across borders. A future where Palestinians have a state of their own, one that fulfills its people's legitimate aspirations, one that cannot threaten Israel or harbor terrorist groups with backing from Iran. A future where Israelis and Palestinians enjoy equal measures of security, prosperity, and yes, dignity. To that end, the United States remains prepared to conclude a set of historic deals with Saudi Arabia, to include a security pact and economic assurances, together with a credible pathway for establishing a Palestinian state and the full normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, a desire they both have. I believe this agenda remains possible, and in my remaining time in office, I'll work tirelessly to advance this vision for an integrated, secure, and prosperous region, all of which strengthens America's national security. Getting all this done will require making some hard choices. Israel has been bold on the battlefield. Iran and its proxies have paid a very heavy price. Now Israel must be bold in turning tactical gains against Iran and its proxies into a coherent strategy that secure Israel's long-term safety and advances a broader peace and prosperity in the region. Today's announcement is a critical step in advancing that vision. And so I applaud the crazy decision made by the leaders of Lebanon and Israel to end the violence. It reminds us that peace is possible. Say that again, peace is possible. As long as that is the case, I will not for a single moment stop working to achieve it. God bless you all. I'm sorry to keep you waiting so long. May God protect our troops. Thank you.
There you have it, you guys. Joe Biden on the ceasefire, as we are hearing that they have put an end to the fighting between Israel and the proxy group from Iran, Hezbollah. Take a look. Here's the headlines coming out on this today. You can see this coming out just a little bit over an hour ago. And it says President Joe Biden announced Tuesday today that the U.S. helped secure a ceasefire deal in Lebanon, which would end the fighting between Israel and the Iran-backed militant groups Hezbollah. His announcement came as Israel's cabinet approved the ceasefire after urging from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The war between Israel and the Iran-backed group has ended the lives of 3,800 people in Lebanon over the last year and left about 16,000 others wounded. Today I have some good news to report from the Middle East, Biden said at the White House lawn. I just spoke to the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States' proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. I want to thank President Macron of France for his partnership in reaching this moment. And that was the speech that you just watched right now. So amid all of the escalation that is currently taking place and Russia being enraged with Joe Biden, we are also hearing that Joe Biden and France have helped broker a peace agreement between Israel and Hezbollah. So, man, a lot unfolding today, November the 26th, 2024. And like I said, though, this will likely not be the end of it. Man of Steel, thank you for the $2 super chat. Says babble, wipe your chin, Joe. Thank you for the $2 super chat and the laugh. I appreciate it. Now, whatever unfolds, though, I will continue to keep you guys up to date. We're going to be seeing, because I believe that in this agreement as well, we had heard that Israel said that if things go awry with Hezbollah, that they have the right to just start things right back up if necessary. In addition to that, it makes me wonder what's going to be going on with Hamas and the hostages, the Houthis, and the conflicts right now that they have directly with Iran. So we're going to be seeing where this goes. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, Russia enraged with Joe Biden at the suggestion of providing Ukraine with nuclear weapons. The White House walking those words back, saying, no, that's not what we meant. In addition to that, we're hearing that Russia will be retaliating against Ukraine. I will keep you up to date on that, as we're hearing there will be a response, as Ukraine has done a second attack with U.S. missiles, ATACMS, directly into Russia. Russia saying there will be retaliation. And we saw the Pentagon hold a briefing today as Russia barraged Ukraine with drone attacks as well. And there was a meeting I shared with you earlier today in NATO discussing potentially striking preemptively Russia. And there was talks about nuclear attacks as well. So things escalating significantly. And as I mentioned, Joe Biden saying he's thinking about pouring an additional $24 billion into Ukraine within the next month before he leaves the office, so that way he can help Ukraine support itself throughout the years while he is gone and Donald Trump is in office. So a lot unfolding today, November the 26th, 2024. But like I said, stay tuned to the channel. I'll be sure to keep you up to date on everything. And if you appreciate that, do me a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please take a second. Hit that like button for me. Helps spread this out further across the YouTube platform. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. Why not? And actually, 20 more likes gets us to 1,500 while we're live. That would be awesome. And also, all of these articles, as you guys know, I cite them, put them on the screen. They are linked in the description. You can click the hyperlinks, go right to them, read them for yourself. Try to source everything like a book report, hold myself accountable to the community so that way you know that it is the latest. But that is what's going on today, you guys. A lot of big news coming out, and I will be sure to keep you up to speed on everything. So thank you so much for joining me. I know it's pretty late. You guys have a blessed night. Hope that you are having a good Thanksgiving week so far. I will keep you up to speed every step of the way. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys. Take care. God bless. I'll catch you in the next one. This is Steve.